Scott just made the point. Jeff Jefferson seems to be a lot more secure, not just.
More than 120 women say they were molested, manhandled, robbed, and even raped by a mob on New Year's Eve in Cologne, Germany. But the authorities are still reluctant to connect the dots with Chancellor Angela Merkel's Refugees Welcome program. Is this the natural consequence of political correctness or just an isolated incident? I'm PJTV's Scott Ott, joined by Stephen Green and Bill Whittle. And men, the day after the alleged mass molestation, the official word was that nothing unusual had happened on New Year's Eve. According to the UK Daily Mail, the Cologne police force issued an official press release the following day describing the celebrations as, quote, exuberant, but mostly peaceful, end quote. Police later retracted that statement, and the police chief was removed from his post. 8 days after the incident, the paper said Cologne's pro-migrant mayor, Henriette Reker, at a press conference, quote, contradicted police by saying that newly arrived migrants had not been to blame. She said that to prevent future attacks, women should follow a new code of conduct. They should keep strangers at arm's length, stick together in groups, and not get split up, even if they were, quote, in the party mood, end quote. Meanwhile, German officials now say that the knife-wielding Muslim shot by French police during an attack on a Paris gendarme station was living in refugee housing in Germany. And yet, as John Hinderaker at Powerline Blog notes, the German media have towed the government line, playing down the fact that sexual assaults come nearly always at the hands of recently arrived Muslim migrants and so-called refugees, who now flow into Germany at the rate of about 3,200 per day. Stephen Green, can you understand the reluctance of German officials to implicate all Muslim refugees in the crimes of a relative few? And what difference does it make at this point anyway, whether they were Muslims or just some guys out for a stroll?
Well, how about they at least recognize that it happened and that it was some of the immigrants, no matter what a tiny fraction of a point that it was, were the ones who did this, and take appropriate measures to protect their own citizens, to protect their own women. You know, this is, pardon me, this is especially disappointing coming under Angela Merkel's administration. You know, she was raised, she's the first united German chancellor to have grown up in East Germany. She knows firsthand what it's like to live in a state where the government does not protect its citizens, where the government is actually an agent of covering up harm and violations of its citizens. That's what she grew up with, and I had such high hopes for her, having grown up an Aussie, coming to be the chancellor of a united Germany, and instead she turns out to be the worst kind of politically correct. You know, there was a story in our very own NPR, I found this on their website. They called it Cologne's Night of Shame. And it was kind of a mystery who the shame might be put upon, because the word that wasn't mentioned in the story once was Muslim, and there was another word that was mentioned one time in the story, and that's Islam, but only in reference to a rising right-wing group in Germany that's the real boogeyman of NPR's story. So, you know, we're just as bad on this side of the pond. And right now, it's rape, it's going to be murder. We're going to get people killed by turning a blind eye to what's going on. You know, let's bring in refugees, let's bring in women, let's bring in children, let's give them the protection they need from their own societies while protecting our women and children here, and let the men fight it out over there. I'm sick of this stuff.
Well, Bill Whittle, these cases haven't gone to court yet, and they're just allegations, albeit allegations captured on cell phone video in some cases. So aren't journalists simply doing their job professionally when they refuse to speculate or label the religion of the alleged perpetrators?
Oh, they're doing their job all right, certainly. They're absolutely doing their job. And their job is to maintain the politically correct, progressive lie. And the lie has to be repeated. And the more evidence that mounts against the lie, the louder it has to be repeated and the more it has to be shouted down onto those poor, idiotic, knuckle-dragging rubes that make up the citizens of the actual country that these people purport to represent. Let's just have a quick look at the actual situation. You know, molestation is like, did I touch you in the back of the ear or something? Some of these women were gang raped. So these rapes occurred in Cologne, but you know where they occurred, Scotty? You know where the big pictures, every time you see pictures of it, what part of Cologne did the rapes occur? What is the giant feature in the background of all of these pictures? It's the Cologne Cathedral. It's the Cologne Cathedral. It's the cathedral. It's the symbol of Christianity in Cologne. And the fact that there were hundreds of people here means it was coordinated. It wasn't just like a Mardi Gras kind of thing. It was a coordinated statement of the coming Islamic supremacy to rape German white women at the cathedral, because this is what the policy of these immigrants is. You can see, I've seen videos of these imams saying, your white daughters are going to have Muslim men for husbands, and they're going to have Muslim kids. Your son is going to have a beard. They openly say this on the street to the German people. It's a sign of their utter confidence, and their utter confidence is predicated on the pathological weakness of Angela Merkel and the press in Germany to see the reality of the world. These Islamist jihadists, let me rephrase that. These rapists and murderers are fully aware of the death wish of the elites of the West, and their mistake is that they think the death-wishing elites in Europe and the death-wishing elites here in America with Barack Obama, who talks about the religion of peace and how Islam is a fundamental part of American culture. It is, in fact. It's the first country we ever went to war with, so it does, in fact, go back to the very founding of the United States, because the very first people we ever had to go fight in the world were Islamic pirates who were murdering and raping people, as well as our sailors. So, yes, it is a fundamental part of American history. This is the larger point, because I could do this all day. But the larger point is this, and Glenn Reynolds has pointed this out too. If you look at the fall of the communist bloc, which Angela Merkel presumably saw from the inside, if you look at the fall of totalitarian regimes everywhere, if you look at the fall of dictatorships of ideas, as Glenn Reynolds has pointed out, the one thing you can find out is the more suppression there is on the people, the quicker and the more violent the response is going to be. And 2016, I'm telling you, is the year where this nonsense comes to an end. It is, I can already feel it. We're in the middle of January. Everybody knows it. The West is starting to wake up. The West is starting to wake up. I think it was our friend Mike Walsh who started talking about the Western Spring, this idea that, no, the big awakening is coming. But the big awakening is not going to be a bunch of people in Syria, and it's not going to be a bunch of people in Libya, and it's not going to be a bunch of people in Iran. The big awakening of 2016 is where the people of the Western countries realize that this decency that they've expressed, this generosity that they've expressed, this willingness to open their homes to people out of their internal decency and goodness is being used as a weapon against them for the invasion of their societies and for the utter conquest of everything that they believe by people whose values are antithetical to ours. And I can feel it in the ground. I can feel it. It's starting to get into Lord of the Rings. I can smell it in the air. It's coming to an end. Whether Angela Merkel or the press or anybody else wants to keep it going, it doesn't matter. It's why Donald Trump is so popular, by the way. It's coming to an end. And I find it ironic, actually, and rather joyful that this story was originally broken by Breitbart, wasn't it? Wasn't it Breitbart Europe that first really brought this story to the attention of the world in a way that couldn't be denied? Interesting, isn't it?
Well, even as the truth trickles out through victim interviews and cell phone videos, the news media persist in referring to the apparent perps as, quote, North African, or, quote, Arab, or, quote, asylum seekers. But there's only one entity whose ideology supports the mistreatment of women on a massive scale. Islam means submission, and for women, it means you are property, a slab of meat to be used, abused, and discarded as your male masters determine. German authorities and their sycophants in the media have become enablers and protectors of rapists and molesters. And if you and your liberal feminist friends say nothing like this could happen in the United States, well, then I would encourage you to keep strangers at arm's length, stick together in liberal groups, and don't get split up from your liberal friends, even if you're, quote, in the party mood, because the marauding Muslim plague isn't over. They're bringing the party to you. For Bill Whittle, Stephen Green, and the entire Trifecta crew at PJTV.com, I'm Scott Ott.